I know you'll make us look good.
It's perfect.
Does your camera add weight? Because we're cutting it.
Okay, so the first question is, how did you guys meet?
Well, I had been separated because we are second time around, and I then became a believer in November 1980, and I asked the Lord, how could I find the right woman? And he said, become the right man. And my response as a man was, well, so what's wrong with me? And the heavens were brass. And after a couple of days, I said, okay, Lord, how do I become the right man? And people started talking to me about Christian counseling, and I started with that, and that started my healing. Shortly after that, I started to see Angie in different places, in 5 different places before she even knew I was alive. And I asked the Lord, I said, am I going to marry this girl? And I felt yes. And so the last time that I saw her, I saw this girl driving behind me as I was exiting to go to a church in Toronto on a Sunday morning, and I thought I saw this girl driving behind me, so I let her pass me, and sure enough that was her. And through that we met in the parking lot of the church, and basically we saw each other for a little while, and then because she hadn't finished dealing with her split up or divorce, and I was a few years from mine. So I think God knew we needed a healing time. And so we went our separate ways. And then finally I said, okay, Lord, I was very disappointed when things didn't come about right away. I said, okay, Lord, I'm not looking for anyone until you bring her right to me. And I walked away from church for a while. And the first Sunday I went back, I was attracted to the music at this particular church. Went back the second Sunday, then Angie walked in with 2 girlfriends, and then we started seeing each other again. That would have been in the spring of 1985, and married the girl a year later in 1986.
So did you guys talk about having children when you got married?
No, we didn't, because I had 3 children, was married for 13 years, and after the 3rd one, I had the vasectomy, so we never ever talked about children. I never knew that she had a desire to have a boy and a girl.
So I just kind of, it wasn't anything that we really talked about. It was just, I was happy that we had 3 beautiful children that Ed had, and now we are, going to be together, raising the children and seeing them, go through different stages of life. And and that was it. We never discussed, children. So it was just one of those things that we just, we were so happy with just being together.
Both of us have great relationships with the 3 older children, and like we said, we never thought about having children at all. Then we were married, I guess, probably 3 years, and then God started to speak to me about pray for children, and at first I was sort of saying, whose children? But then after the 3rd time, it always happens in 3s for me. So then I recognized that God was saying for us to pray for children. So then when I said it to Angie, she said, oh no, it's not fair. You've already had 3 children. I said, it's not about what's fair. If a man loves a woman, he wants what's best for her, right? And so she said, well, how are we going to do that with you having had that surgery or procedure? And I said, well, I'll get a reversal. So we went to see our doctor, and he said, the odds aren't good, maybe 85-15 against. And so when we talked about it, I said, doesn't matter. If God is in it, he doesn't need 1%. So we proceeded with the surgery, and in June, and then in September we were supposed to go for testing. And I looked at Angie one morning and I said, you're pregnant. She said, no, I feel the same. I said, okay, no problem. She went back to the same doctor before the end of that month. And then, of course, you don't get the result right away. So a few mornings later, I was upstairs, I was reading in the Bible, and I read, and he knew his wife, and she conceived and bore him a son. And I felt a quickening in my spirit, and I said, Lord, is that for me? And the phone rang downstairs, and Angie answered the phone, and then I heard her come running up the stairs, and she said, guess what, honey? I said, you're pregnant and we're having a son.
So I was just so thrilled with just having, just knowing I was having a child, and it was something that I really wasn't expecting. But I think what was really amazing is that the Lord spoke to Ed about it. That's wild, because it was like such a, something that's within your own heart, and you don't really, a lot of people have a lot of, heart desires and dreams and, kind of things that they hope maybe one day. But I just kind of, I was just very happy that, we were married and had a beautiful family, so I was good with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I guess the Lord had other plans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, the amazing part always is that God knew her desire, and I had no idea she had given up on it, but he hadn't.
Yeah.
So that's the miracle. I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest miracle,
So,
because
and-
when he talks to you about something that was a desire within my heart that I, kind of shelved it myself, and I thought, like, that's a miracle. I think that's such a God miracle, that he would do something and speak to somebody else, about that, and that he would be obedient. That's the bigger part. He had to be obedient to hear and then walk it out.
By the time Angie was pregnant, I would have been 46, and you were
You're gonna be
34.
34.
34. And then we, through mistakes that I made in real estate by investing in a new property and the market crashing, we lost everything, and then we ended up having to go into a rental home, and there was a lot of stress for Angie and going through that. And in the midst of that, one day, God started again. And I didn't say anything to Angie right away because of the situation we were in, but God was saying to me, now pray for Sarah. And after I heard the third time, and he always says to me 3 times, maybe because I'm either slow or have to hear it, confirmation. And so then I told Angie, and I said, Lord's saying pray for Sarah. So then having lost everything, even having to give up our cars, and we were in a rental home, and actually it was so bad someone gave us a station wagon. They gave us a car. Many days we didn't know where the next meal was coming from, but God always provided. And then one morning I didn't have gas to even go and try and do any work. I was still in the real estate business, but nothing was selling. And I said, Lord, what am I supposed to do? And I heard him say, bottle of booze. And I go, I don't think God talks like that. But then my eyes went to above the fridge in the cupboard, and there was a bottle of Chivas Regal. And so because Angie used to work for Seagram's, I said to her, can you take this back? And she said, I think so. So I called the liquor store, and they said yes. And the bottle was worth
$52.50.
And so that day we had some grocery and some gas money. I was trying to sell commercial advertising because real estate wasn't selling, it wasn't working. It didn't feel like the right time to have another child, but when God says it, I was at peace with it, because I know if it's his idea, then he'll work out like all the details.
And then for me, then when you're saying it to me about, God is showing
Just to pray for
showing
Sarah.
us to pray for Sarah. So of course, the scenario that we were in, and it wasn't we weren't in a good place, and actually we were helping other families that were struggling as well. So, here we're struggling, and we're helping other families that are struggling as well. And then God is saying to pray for Sarah. And he's talking to Ed about this, because he's not talking to me about this. I was already in major stress and fear. So then he's talking to Ed about this, and I'm just kind of like, are you kidding me? Like, it's like, does he know what we're going through? Like, this is not the time. This is not the time, the place. It's just ridiculous. It's totally insane. It's crazy. It's irresponsible. We can barely manage with what's happening here.
And when she was saying to me, she's holding John. No, I'm okay for now. And I said, well, if God keeps saying it to me, then I think we have to consider it. And anyway, so then we agreed.
Well, it was like, it wasn't really a total agreement. It was almost like, this is too crazy. It's totally, like, it just doesn't make any sense. But then, of course, anything that doesn't make any sense and it's totally impossible and insane, for sure God's signature is somewhere in this. So I was probably, okay, if God is saying it, it's you guys are talking about this, and it's like, if I can't, talk to you, the both of you, and make any sense out of this, or help you guys think this through, it's like, okay, well, like, okay, whatever. I don't want to be disobedient. Let's put it this way. I was totally freaked right out, but I didn't want to be disobedient. So that was the main thing. So we just said, okay, if we're going to go for it, let's just, whatever. If it's one more child that's going to suffer with us, well, so let it be. I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me at all. So from a practical position, it was totally, I felt irresponsible. I guess, put it that way. But then, it was.
Mine was probably the opposite. I was just thinking, well, if God says it, then He's going to provide, and He's going to make it work. So
yeah, he was more obedient. I guess that's why God
not
talks
more
to
obedient.
him.
We're just, God attracts opposites. So that's.
But he had more faith than I did, because I couldn't be. I just couldn't see it. I could barely get through the day. And so God was, speaking to him about, this is the perfect timing. But it was healing. He was really healing our hearts, and really setting us free from a lot of lies too that we were believing. But God, He really brings you to new levels of just being really set free. And that's what He was doing that, at the time I didn't appreciate it.
So then Angie was pregnant with Sarah. We never ever questioned whether it was a boy or a girl. And when anyone would say, oh, she's carrying it, could be it's a girl, and her name is Sarah. And so we knew, we never had a question. So, and with Jonathan, because according to the scripture, he knew his wife and she conceived and bore him a son. I knew he was a boy, and no matter what other people said, I'd say, no, it's a boy. His name's Jonathan. And one morning in June, or June 22nd to be exact, I was about to go to work and try to make some money, and I noticed that Angie was struggling a little bit by the sink, and I said, what's wrong, hon? And she said, oh, just some false labor. And I said, well, I think I'll stay home for a while. She said, no, it's okay, just go. And I said, no, I'm going to stay. And so as time progressed, we could see that Sarah was in a hurry. She was going to come a few weeks early. And so we had to call for her sister to come over and mind Jonathan. And Sarah was in such a hurry, we almost delivered her in the car going to the hospital. And then so quickly that her doctor couldn't even be there. So some strange young doctor was delivering, and I barely had time to wash my hands. I left the car running in emergency and just yelled out to security, and just got in the room and just in time to see Sarah being born. And then the doctor said, it's a girl. And I said, of course it's a girl. Her name is Sarah. And then the way they lay the baby across the mama's chest, she could fit in from my hand to my elbow. She was just so little, but her little head was turned away from me, and I'd been speaking to her the whole time while she was in Mommy's tummy, and I just leaned beside her and whispered in her ear and said, welcome home, Sarah, and her little face just turned towards me. Yeah, so prior to our time in the wilderness ending, God sent a prophet to call me out by name in a church service and tell me all these great things that were going to happen, and that I was going to be in authority, and it was going to be blessed financially. But I'd never had a prophetic word spoken over me. And because I was a little upset with God at the time, because I had a wife and 2 children, I didn't feel I was providing for very well. So I just kind of just said, yeah, sure. But as we were coming out of that home, we had to leave by the end of the month of November of 1995, but we had nowhere to go. We were behind in our rent. We had no credit, no down payment. And then God said, don't worry, son, you're going to buy a home. So when God said that, don't worry, son, you're going to buy a home, that wouldn't leave, even though I didn't see how it could happen. And people would say, oh, well, just move into our basement apartment, put your furniture in our garage and whatever. And I said, no, I can't until God shows me. And so I was taking a picture of the home we're in now, because I'm in real estate, and it was for sale privately. And I made up a package, and I went to the door, knocked on the lady's door, and kidded around with her about the private for sale sign. And bottom line was, I got the listing, I listed it. But while I was taking the picture, I heard in my own voice, audibly behind me, I could live here. And I just sort of jumped, but I didn't tell Angie, because things didn't seem possible. So I got the listing, and as I was walking around the street putting flyers out, I said, Lord, if you'll put us in this home, I promise I'll raise our children here. And so then I was always fearless in contacting people, door knocking, making cold calls. I wasn't really ever afraid of that, because I'd gone through some real hard training in the insurance business years before that. But this time, to talk to these people about buying this home, I was full of fear. And so Angie prayed for me, and I was trying to avoid talking to the owner, but I go to the bank, and there he is right in the lineup in front of me. So anyway, that's when I had Angie pray for me, and we put together an offer for him where he would have to help fund the purchase. We were 2 weeks before we were going to be on the street with 2 children. It was middle of November by then.
But it was like the month was a month before we had to move out, and someone asked, "Oh, so do you know where you're going?" We said no, because that would make too much common sense. So we were just once again on a God ride, just what he's going to be doing as he's stretching my faith and believing that by the end of the month we will know where we are going. So here we go, and before you know it, the Lord was just putting everything into place for us, and we miraculously got this home. The whole circumstances, the favor we had with them to miraculously, be able to just accept the offer that we did, and we moved in, and it was just like, oh my gosh, to me it was like crossing the Red Sea. I just kind of felt it was really at that point of crossing the Red Sea, and that we finally made it to the other side. And it was just overwhelming. I was really, by the next day, I would just, when we were actually in the home, I just cried for joy, because it really was another stretch of faith, and because we really didn't know what was going to be taking place, but God was doing some stretching again.
The main thing I've always found is when God speaks to me about something, I just immediately know that if it's his idea, then it's the right time. And so circumstances to me didn't matter then, and even now, when we go through things, say if God confirms it and says it's the right time, then he'll work out all the details, regardless of age or financial situations. Doesn't really matter. It's God is good, and if he says it, it's take it to the bank.
With myself, because I've always had fear, and of course always with operating in fear, and fortunately, it was just I would have to walk through a lot of these. Okay, but the Lord was with you over here, and the Lord was with you over there, and so a lot of times when you're so busy being caught up in fear, you can't hear too well. So I would often just kind of look to see if like Ed is saying, okay, this is what I'm feeling that the Lord is showing me, and I'm just trying to wait, to see, okay, I'm ready for you to talk to me, but don't scare me. But I'm ready for you to talk to me, and but again, everything was based on fear. But the Lord has been, healing my heart of that, and perfect love casts out fear. And that has been a journey, for me, and just being able to have the heart healing, to be able to know that the Father heart of God is always, to love, and to be able to have His children, drawn to Him.
God said that David is a man after my own heart. So I'd always look there, well, what did David do? Well, he said, well, the same God who delivered the bear and the lion into my hand, this day will deliver Goliath. So I always look and say, okay, the same God who brought us together and then promised us children and delivered, and then promised us a home which we now have been living in for 26 years. And so I just always look back and say, no, the same God who delivered us here will deliver us again. So I'm always at peace with what we're doing.